Welcome to the Badlands, a place I don't think I or anyone I'm going to talk to expected to be. My name is Jared, and for the last 9 months, I've been an out-of-work ad agency senior suit. My last role was the Regional Client Service Director at Grey Singapore, delivering work around Southeast Asia and India. I returned to London last year, fully imagining I'd been in another agency fairly quickly, as had been the case over the last 2 decades, but not so much this time. So I found myself wandering the Badlands. In these 9 months, I've noticed a few odd things in our industry, and I've also noticed a surprising amount of ex-colleagues and clients all in a similar position to me. So I thought it might be helpful and maybe interesting to talk to some of these people, to see how they're doing, discover their experiences, understand what they're looking for, and maybe shine a light on them and their talents. But most importantly, check in with them, as it's a lonely experience being in the Badlands. So please welcome Damian Mckeown, Chief Strategy Officer Extraordinaire. Damian and I actually worked together many, many years ago when he was the Chief Strategy Officer at Sapient Nitro. He's worked everywhere essentially in his career, and in my opinion, he's one of the smartest and most pragmatic strategists I've ever known. All that said, he's in the Badlands. So today we discuss why, how, and what the hell, to be honest, along with some of his views on the state of the industry, and knowing Damian, the state of the UK and the world at large. So please welcome Damian Mckeown. Damian, how are you, fella?
Hey, Jared. I suppose I'm one of my favourite books is Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea, and I kind of feel I'm at sea trying to catch something big, and nothing's bitten, but I know it's out there.
Well, as we could end it right there. People listening, just remember that, right? Oh, hang on. So I've just been telling Damian that we just got a puppy this weekend, and the second we started recording, he's been sat on my feet for 25 minutes, but the second we started recording, he's having a little look around. Oh no.
What did you say? So Jared promised me an interview, and he's now disappeared, taking a puppy around. And he's forcing me to do the interstitial while he's disappeared.
Damian, come on. I know you could have vamped in that. I've seen you tap dance in meetings when the work's been shit.
I was worried. I thought I was going to hear screams and yelps.
No, I'm sorry. He was, honestly, our puppy's called Jerry. Jerry did brilliantly then. He knew he was on the cusp and he let me take him outside. Jerry, you going to chill so I can talk to Damian? Because no one listening to this, everyone's clicked off unless I put a picture of Jerry on right now.
Yeah, I imagine. Yeah, puppies.
Damian, I'm so sorry, buddy.
No, don't worry.
I'd just given a pretty good intro of you, and I apologize, and you'd give a beautiful start to it, so I've totally lost track. But at this point, I kind of ask my guests and people I'm having chats with to give the listeners a good sense of who they are and what they've done and where they've worked. Now, as I mentioned, you've worked everywhere, so take as long as you want because it's such an amazing career. You've worked at some amazing places and you've done some amazing stuff. So I really want people to get a sense of, shit, this guy knows his stuff. It's criminal that he's in the Badlands.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, I suppose a bit like the old man on the boat. You know, I know that I've caught some big fish before, so that kind of keeps you going, really. And I've been very blessed, I think, with the journey I've had. It's been a curious one in the sense that one of my modules at university, I did a degree in cultural studies and critical theory, and one of my modules was politics and advertising. And in those days, one of the kind of key books in the module was The Hidden Persuaders, and the point of view in that book, or the premise, is that the early days of advertising was about manipulation. It was about finding tools, like eye trackers and stuff like that, to understand the behavior of consumers.
Yeah.
The kind of needs and the wants, the drivers of consumption, and then to kind of manipulate those. and I bought into that to a certain extent. But at the same time, we did a another module, um, uh, and we had to read Mills and Boon. Um, and,
I mean, if there was ever a perfect summary of my experience of you, Damien, it's probably that right there.
yeah,
Those books.
exactly. And of course, one of the views you might take when you're reading that kind of material in a critical way is that the women that were reading it accepted and believed all the kind of the patriarchal narrative and the idea of the kind of dark, swarthy man who comes to rescue them, and the kind of the very traditional roles and needs of women. And of course, that was very much a point of view that was challenged, and in fact, the way we began to understand the way Mills and Boon and those stories were read was it was about fantasy. These weren't women that were reading these weren't necessarily swooning at the feet of every kind of good-looking, swarthy man that kind of walked into their lives. And you could think of that in the same way. You can apply that to advertising. The idea that everyone is easily manipulated, believes everything they're told in an advert is a nonsense. We are all critical of all those interactions and all that content. And I found that really exciting and interesting. I found that kind of connection between um, understanding culture, understanding people, and also then understanding their needs, wants, and desires, and meeting those with communications or products. A really fascinating area. But um, I fell out of college, out of uni, came to London with no degree, needing a job, ended up selling fire extinguishers. Um, and I was so skint. I could only afford a second-hand suit. I bought this big suit. I looked like something out of Kid Creole and the Coconuts. I had to tie the bottoms up with a belt. And my West Indian father-in-law built me a briefcase that was so heavy, and I had to
There's
traipse around.
there's a sitcom in this, Damien.
I
Come on,
know, I
I
know.
don't know why we're messing about in advertising, dude. There's a sitcom
Yeah,
right here.
I had to traipse around the. Basically, you got on the tube and you would stop at every station, get out and look for let by signs, and then knock on the door and try and flog them fire extinguishers. And one day I was on the Circle line, and there was this old guy, this old black guy in front of me. And we started up a conversation, and he said, "Oh, what do you do?" And I said, "I sell fire extinguishers." And he said, "Well, why do you sell fire extinguishers?" I said, "So people put their fires out." And he went, "No, no, no. Why are you selling fire extinguishers?" And I said, "Well, I've dropped out of university. I've got no qualifications, and I've just basically taken any job I can get." Um, and he said, "But you don't need qualifications to do the thing that you want to do. All you need is passion, imagination, desire." And he kind of did this big speech to me. And he said, "Look, whatever you want, whatever your vision, your passion is, your prize, you can do that without any kind of qualifications. But all you have to do, whatever you do, is keep your eyes on your prize." Uh, and he was this old guy, and he had kind of yellowing teeth a bit, but he's wearing this kind of sharp suit. And I turned around to him and said, "Well, what do you do?" And he said, "I'm an inventor." I said, "What do you invent?" And he took out this card. He said, I invent inflatable machines." And so one of my biggest inventions is an inflatable motorbike. I just didn't know what to think, but I just thought, what a brilliant idea, even if it doesn't work. Um, and I just thought, you know what, but he's right. So I really started kind of thinking about what is my passion and what do I want to do, and my desire, my interest in advertising came back to mind. In the end, I went back to uni and finished my degree, but every job I did, after that, I saw it as a stepping stone into the ad business. And it so happened that the woman that owned the fire extinguisher company had a mate at Saatchi's and Saatchi's.
Right.
I said, "Get me a conversation with your mate." So I did that, and she told me all about the kind of real world of advertising. And then I went into ad sales. I sold ad space for Wattpar and Autocar Motor. Then I met a media guy who introduced me to the people at Select Magazine and Q Magazine. Got a job there working on Select and Q. Then went to IPC and worked on Enemy, Melody Maker, Mix Mag, launched Loaded Magazine with James Brown. And then I'm in a different world. And I'm talking to the world of media. I'm right in the midst of Britpop and culture. Talking to all these really interesting fashion brands and beer brands and, everyone and anyone that wants to talk to young people. And all of that, I'm going to use this. This is all the stuff I'm going to use to get myself uh, attractive to people in advertising, to create value in myself. And then I ended up working for a design agency, and then I said, look, why don't we position ourselves as youth specialists and go and talk to brands who want to talk to young people in a real authentic, genuine way that connects to culture in a way that people feel you're contributing to culture and connecting to people in a way that's beyond just kind of telling and selling. So uh, we got Caterpillar Boots, and we launched Caterpillar Boots in the UK. And then we had this idea, which was because we all loved film there, and I had another mate, Mark Ratcliffe, who was a researcher. We had another mate who ran an independent film company, and we said, let's stop making ads. Let's start making our own films. And I basically convinced the marketing director of Levi's to give us 400 grand to make a load of short films. And then I went to Buena Vista and all the other distribution companies and said, if you give me, this is way before Orange Wednesdays, stuff like that, pre-internet. I said to Buena Vista, if you give us the 10 minutes before your feature films, I'll give you exposure in every Levi's store for the main feature. So I just did a value exchange deal, and we made 10 or so 10-minute short films. Joe Wright was one of the directors. So that was his second short film called The End, written by Kathy Burke. And of course, Joe Wright's now Hollywood, very famous Hollywood director. A lot of our people, we had director photographers who are now kind of big in the world of film and TV. But we then used the fact that we created these films and done these deals. I then went to Stella Artois, who were doing the kind of Stella Artois film thing, said, we know how to do film, we know how to connect with young audiences. And their big problem was how to kind of generate affinity to an audience that felt that the brand had lost its connection to their lives and to culture because it was so overexposed. And again, all these little things were ways to understand the media and the advertising world. So suddenly, I'm in meetings at BBH with Levi. Suddenly, I'm in meetings at Low Howard Spink and Stella. And every single moment, every opportunity I watched, I learned, I put it away in my head. And eventually, I then went into the world of media, working with John Harlow at Rocket and Jonathan Durden at PhD. And again, in those days, media agencies would pitch with all the advertising agencies. So suddenly I'm in the rooms with, Hal Henry, St. Luke's, et al., and I'm watching and learning Leo Burnett. And I used that again as an opportunity to go just watch and learn, And then through those opportunities and those interactions, John Porter at Leo Burnett suggested to one of his young planners, Stuart Smith, who was at Wiedens, that I might be a great candidate to come into Wiedens to help them out while Russell Davies went on sabbatical. And again, so that was my big break into kind of agency world proper. And again, that was an incredible education. Suddenly I'm with the guys at Wiedens, and Tony and Kim, the the ECDs. They'd come from the world of BBH, but it was all about brand voice. Even though there's this incredible creativity, and I was working with some, Ben and Matt and Sean Thompson and some, guy, guy's surname, but all the way through, every opportunity was a lesson for me. It was an opportunity to really see how some of the best people in advertising thought about communications, went about their business. Widen's was a real eye opener because strategists and creatives started at the same time. There was no kind of baton exchange between kind of brief and creative work. It was very much in parallel. And all those early moments, those early interactions, and and even before then, when I was walking into Laz Spink and there was Lawrence Fox, not Lawrence Fox, bloody hell, Lawrence Green, sorry, Lawrence Green, I learned a lot from him. And I just asked questions to everybody. And that really gave me a very strong, broad foundation, I think, which I've kind of taken forward in my career. And then it was just a case of, doing my thing at each agency and being headhunted and, moving onwards. So there was kind of a fantastic time. After my time at Widen's, John Porter got me back into Leo Burnett, where that was an agency that was run by small agency people. It was like pirates running a tanker, Jared.
Yeah. Not
With,
anymore.
Jim Thornton, John Burley, Rick and Dan, to Rick Brims now, obviously, Creative Supremo at Adam and Eve. All those people I worked with in those early days are now, chief creative officers or ECDs. And again, for me, it was all about learning how to deal with creatives, how to deal with clients. I had some great account men, and Kofi Annan was one of the business directors there. It's not Kofi. Kofi Annan's his uncle. What's Kofi's? What's Kofi's surname? Gosh, he does DoorDash. Anyway,
I don't know.
He was fantastic. I was just really lucky, and so there was the quick summary, Jared.
No, this is the greatest intro ever. So keep going.
So it's from kind of, and then I landed at DDB running VW, the first kind of integrated account there. So I was working with Tribal DDB and DDB proper. Lucy Jameson was my boss, and that was a fantastic time. We won Can Advertiser of the Year for VW while I was there. And then I got headhunted to Rainey Kelly by Ben Kay, working on everything from LG to Vodafone to Land Rover, big global strategy roles. And I suppose I became a little bit of a management whisperer. I didn't really have any influence, but I really cared about the business and the way we were running accounts as well. And then Andy Nairn got me into Dare, where that was I suppose for me, that was a moment in time. So we're talking about June 2012. It was one of those first times where I walked into an agency in a leadership role and I thought, fuck, I know what I'm doing. I really know the right way and the wrong way. And it was a bit of a revelation to me that I had that confidence. Because, I hadn't come from a red brick university or, Oxbridge. I kind of clawed my way up, I suppose, and didn't really believe in myself that much. I knew I was good, but I didn't know that I had the maturity or the understanding to run an agency and to influence every part of that business. And so that moment in time where I walked into an agency where I was running a department of 45 planners across 5 different disciplines, digital, brand, social, content, experience strategy, working with some serious people who were running those little divisions. But I was also working across 2 or 3 other agencies that are part of the ECD group, doing these massive pitches, reorganizing the way we did things, mentoring and helping strategist and yeah, leading an agency. And for me, it was a bit of a revelation that I could trust myself when I said, no, that's the wrong way and this is the right way. I suppose that was the moment in time, Jared, where I went, whatever happens after this, I want to have a greater degree of influence.
Right.
And so I'm just tapping back into my computer. Can you still hear me all right?
Yeah, mate. I sometimes worry that I talk over people, so I'm just listening because it's an unbelievable story. So crack on, mate.
Um, and but the interesting about Dare is that it was after the merger of MCBD and Dare. So Dare had been digital agency for decades. MCBD was this kind of fantastic independent creative shop with Helen Coolcraft very much at the heart of that, and Andy Nairn and Danny Brooke Taylor. But that merger was an early example of how mixing digital with creative is kind of water and oil. Didn't really work. Nice people, very talented people either in the wrong roles. That's the Dare lot, and I'd say MCBD lost the arm wrestle in terms of agency leadership. It was very dysfunctional, and gradually it was clear that it wasn't going to work. And then we had a guy come in to above a group structure, who then just kind of slashed and burned, and I was one of the casualties of that. So it was an early experience being fired quite unreasonably, and going, fuck, what do I do now? It's never happened before. I've been kind of moving ahead and flying, and it was an early experience of how to, not just an experience, but a moment in time where I had to look at myself and go, what's important? What do I need? How do I get out of this? And all the doubts that come with that, even though I'd probably been doing the best work, well, not the best work in my life, but certainly the best things in my life. And I decided to kind of take it as an opportunity to do lots of other things, to kind of learn while I earn, I suppose. So that's when I kind of started exploring other areas of advertising and marketing. I worked at the marketing store for a while, and I actually ended up, happy. If you don't know this, Happy Meals in Europe is huge for McDonald's, and they have these Happy Meals characters, and the people that wrote the cartoons and the digital stuff for Happy Meals was this two French creative directors, a man and a woman, and it needed a reboot. So I was sent over to France to work with these two people that were basically the king and the queen of Happy Meals. No one could tell them what to do, and I had to bring my Egyptian charm to bear to kind of get them on side, and then rewrite the whole kind of premise of the Happy Meal characters, and create a new narrative going forward, and a new way of how that would interact with young kids in restaurants and in digital. And in fact, the marketing store and McDonald's were probably the second biggest toy manufacturer in the world.
Yeah. Is it Mark? Who's the guy who runs it? Mark, Miss Sonny. But yes, sorry, Tim. I know those guys.
Yeah,
They're
I
still
don't remember.
they're still doing McDonald's.
Yeah,
They're still
yeah.
big.
And then of course, I met you at Sapien, which was another kind of very interesting premise in terms of the way they thought about communications and business transformation. And so I learned a lot from you and everyone I worked with there as well. And Mark, our creative director. So then I had this another period after that where I was just kind of walking into agencies I've just been pitching, probably I'd say from 2015 I've been pitching non-stop across the London agencies, from Droga 5 to RGA to Above and Beyond, Starches,
Were you
Pablo.
a consultant at that time, Damo? I couldn't remember. You weren't a permanent member of staff, were you at Sapient? Did you move
No,
into
no, I
like
was
more of a
consulting there. yeah, I was consulting there as well, Jared. So,
Yeah. I
I mean,
remember. So you made a decision at some point to go, well, I can do that. This is my role. And after the Dare episode, did you think, well, actually now I've built up enough experience, I can kind of ply my trade anywhere? And did you make a conscious decision to go into that kind of full-time consultant approach?
I tell you what it was, Jared, is I was so disappointed with the way I was treated at Dare.
Right.
Um, uh, After working my ass, I've never worked so hard, and I don't think I'd ever delivered so much. And I really felt that um, I didn't want to commit to anywhere where I didn't trust and believe in the people I was working for.
Right.
I was really kind of, had my toes burnt by that. And I was always looking for a home. And I kept thinking, when I find that home, I'll know it.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be beholden to this idea that I need to have a permanent role somewhere just to have that security. I actually think Hannahs are, in particular, a very insecure and small C conservative bunch. I think, we, a lot of planners feel, and one of the reasons they feel like that is because we are left to work on our own a lot. There, there, there,
Yeah.
there there comes a point in the process. You've had all your conversations with clients, with your, account colleagues, maybe even, the creative guys on the account, depends how the structure is, where you're discussing the problems, the challenges, and the way forward. But there comes a point where you're just left alone, to write, to think, to kind of bring it all together. And if it's a bit like, my analogy would be, the language you hear from the likes of Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. If you are not comfortable and secure and supported, you won't deliver your best. You've
Right.
got to have an environment, and an emotional environment where you feel secure, where you feel that you're allowed to make mistakes, you're allowed to get the first brief wrong, you're allowed to, be iterative, even though you're aiming for, you know, um, pole position. If you take a corner wrong or you kind of end up in the gravel patch, it's okay. People still believe in your excellence and your ability. And of course, you have to deliver, but you feel that emotional, um, security there. And so for me, I kind of felt that, if I wasn't feeling that trust, then, and you have to earn it. Let's be honest. You've got to
Yeah.
earn the trust. But if it's a dysfunctional place, or there's some characters who you don't really care about, you know, you or other people, I don't want to be there. I really don't. So for me, that time consulting through, the best of London agencies was really to see who were the great people, who were the nice people, who got it right in terms of processes. Process for me is absolutely essential. Bad processes for me, destroy the best of work and the best of people. And I wanted to kind of find a home through that process rather than through the artificial process of interviews, and because you don't know what you're walking into, with just an interview. I mean, it helps if you know people there. So that was part of that, Jared. Just kind of take my time to find a home. And I thought I had for a while when, I was invited by Dan Fisher to come and run the Martin agency. We had a great year there, but then things went pear-shaped in the US and they closed us down. And now I was back in the world of consulting. Um, I suppose the Badlands for me is a kind of in-between place in terms of projects, but not really an in-between place in terms of work. I came to a decision a long time ago that I would rather be working with good people and good clients, and happy in that, but accept the fact that there would be kind of arid periods, moments in
Yeah.
time where I didn't have money coming in, that I was chewing into reserves, or that actually, there might be kind of little moments of poverty, but I'd rather have that and be happy and feel valued when I do work than go back to a place where I'm being undermined by certain individuals, or working in a place that's dysfunctional, because it hurts too much. I
But
can't do it.
I couldn't agree more. And I think you start to learn this as you progress through your career, right? It becomes you start to understand and learn your own values as you get older and you experience more things in life. And then there are just certain hard no's, right? And so I totally appreciate your honesty around it. And I was asked recently by a recruiter what am I looking for, and my genuine off the cuff answer was just working with nice people, because the rest is irrelevant. Like I'm not it doesn't bother me what the brand is. It could be Hockin toothpaste. It could be working on the greatest brand of all time, right? That bit's irrelevant. But if you're not working alongside and with people that you appreciate and enjoy and get, and they get you, and you can support and help each other, then the rest of it's nonsense for
Yeah,
me. And I think it takes time to understand that a little bit. For me, it did anyway. The name above the door of the agency used to be the shiny thing. It's like, I'd love to work there, knowing you know knowing full well that some of those agencies that I really wanted to work at when I was younger were hellholes and hellish, and you heard bad things. And I was like, yeah, but good on the CV. And I was like, well, is it good for the soul? It's probably, you start to ask that more and more as you get older, I think.
yeah, definitely. I think culture is very important. I mean, I'm not naive. I've learned long ago people won't be what I want them to be. I learned long ago that self-interest overrides everything. And and also any relationship is about continual forgiveness, whether that's with people in your personal life or people in your professional life. One has to appreciate that self-interest will sometimes mean that where you thought there was loyalty and commitment, that is no longer the case, and can't berate people for being self-interested. Um,
It's no, for sure. This is a big question, but do you think, have you noticed it's gotten worse in inverted commas? Are there less and less of those opportunities, or is it? Do you think over time the agency world has changed to an extent where the value in that is less sought, and it's much more? I don't know. Is it harsher, or is it just we're at a stage where we're just out of the woods a little bit, and you're looking inwards, and you maybe thinking something? I can't decide whether everyone suffers from a little bit of Stockholm syndrome. I think working in the ad industry, you kind
well,
of you take the shit because it's, oh, well, that's what it comes with. It's like, well, does it have to? Should it?
I think there's quite a few ways to answer that. I think uh, from an evidential point of view, I would say that young people working in the business today and the way that they are reacting to leadership and culture is evident that they won't put up with the things that we might have. That
Right.
actually, particularly after COVID, where if you strip away the kind of the free beers, the nights out, the camaraderie, the kind of papering over bad culture with kind of fun and games, actually, the truth is laid bare that the culture is um, dysfunctional, that the leadership is poor, and young people won't put up with it. They're going to ask some searching and serious questions about the way that businesses are run, the way that relationships with clients are dysfunctional, or indeed kind of poisonous relationships are allowed to continue. And I keep hearing from a lot of agency leaders that they're far quicker to fire clients who aren't nice, who are toxic, because they care more about the culture, or the damage to the agency and the agency culture, and the potential to lose good people. Good people don't need to hang around working with toxic or in toxic client relationships. I'm not going to name names, but there's been many a moment in time where good and big agencies have won a piece of business that has proven destructive rather than an opportunity
Yeah.
for greater prosperity or reclaim. And I think good agency leaders recognise those moments and go, look, the money isn't worth it. And if you're a successful agency, you've got cash somewhere, so you can afford to fire a client, still keep your people on. And again, there's been many a time where I would say that, there's been a culture of complicity where toxic to stay in place. And again, I think young people or younger people, and yes, we've seen it and we've learned it. So maybe, we're quicker to ask questions. But I think even novices, even people just into the world of agencies are going, this isn't acceptable. And if an MD or an ECD or a CEO is out of order, then you've got they're asking the question, how is this person allowed to be still in the building?
Yeah, more so. And there's less fear attached, because I think you probably think it. I think today there's less fear attached to questioning it, for sure.
Yeah. But I say all that, and I still think that there are some beautiful, passionate, talented, wonderful. I mean, for me, I suppose my simple delineation between the good and the bad is there's people and then there's human beings.
Yeah. Nice.
And I would say there's lots of human beings in the business, and that's why I stay in the business. And that's and I know them, or I search out for them, and I recognise them quickly.
Yeah, no.
And I think it doesn't cost us anything to be considerate, even in the midst of real pressure. I've had that pressure. I felt that pressure. There is no excuse not to be compassionate, considerate, and empathetic within any organisation, despite how many, whatever the nature of the pressure. Even when it's really, really bloody tough. I mean, you think of our personal lives, Jared. There's still a way to behave to your partner and your kids and your friends, even when the going gets tough, isn't there?
Yeah. And weirdly more so,
Yeah.
You kind of want to be the change you see in the world, or you kind of you have to put yourself out there in a good way in order to be seen. And I think I was thinking as you were talking about, we've all worked with, and I've worked with, in inverted commas, great and good, and my God, this person. And then you do get with them and you think, well, really surprised they've got to this level, because some of their behavior and stuff is certainly not tolerated anymore. But I've always tried to, I think I've never been one of those people who's like, I fucking love advertising. You love it, Damian. But I think you love it for a slightly different reason to some of the people I'm talking about. And certainly my view of loving it, you love the academic side of it. I think you love the insights and the really understanding human behavior. That was always clear as day when we worked together. Like, you were always just about the people we were trying to communicate to, which then leads you to some amazing things. But I've never been like that guy who fucking loves it. And weirdly, that's always stood me in good stead when people are losing their heads in the agency, which happens all the time, right? With deadlines and delivery dates and stress and clients. And I could always be just like, it's fine, just calm down. Like, I always bring a real calm nature to it. And I think there's a balance between understanding that it's important, as in, well, is it important, versus it's just people. We're dealing with people, right? And everyone's got their own shit going on. And I try and always bring that to and particularly as I've got more and more senior, just well, running around with your hair on fire is not going to solve this. Let's just all take a minute. And
yeah,
finding those types of people is key for me moving forward.
Yeah, I always recognise that in you, and I think bringing some kind of calm to the points of pressure, gives people the emotional and
well, like you say, you need space, right? Everyone needs that kind of.
Yes.
You very rarely, someone said, experiences gained 5 minutes after it was needed. And I love that as a thought, right? You kind of have to go through some shit and you kind of learn. And I'm sure I melted down early in my career for sure. And then afterwards you go, well, it didn't change the outcome. It made it worse. Everyone sucks. It's a shitty day. So if you can actually go about this the other way, then you get to the same point. You know, if you're swimming in a swimming pool or the ocean, it doesn't matter how deep it is. You still just got to do the same thing, right? So, I think what would be interesting, Damien, because that's a 39-minute intro. So this might be a record fucking length of podcast, Damien, to be honest. I might have to call Spotify and say, you're going to have to boost the service because I'm going to be putting up a beast. I think you said something to me offline about kind of in between projects and not jobs is how you go about your day and your world now, which is super useful. I think it might be useful for people listening to almost think about it like that, because it's always a project wherever you work, and be it full-time or, consultancy or part-time or fractional. I guess my question at this stage, Damien, would be, are you experiencing longer times between projects than has maybe happened in the past? Because I think it's one of the key themes that comes up all the time, this length of time that it's taking people to find new roles from a marketing point of view, from an agency point of view, across the board, everywhere. And I was curious, is this a long in-between projects phase for you, longer than normal? And is it, do you have thoughts on it? If so, what's your view of it?
Yeah, the simple answer is definitely yes. I think it's been going on for me certainly since Brexit. I think there's been jitters in the business. I think there's been a bit of a perfect storm going on a number of dynamics. I think what we're seeing is the result of both clients and agencies having to rethink the way that they drive growth, I suppose, and also whether growth, as we know it, is the key KPI as well. And I think the way you look at your business and the key metrics is also determining the things that you then do in terms of advertising, promotions, and marketing as a whole. So I think we've had the kind of economic jitters of Brexit. We've had the social economic cultural kind of collapse that came about through COVID. Then we've got, and of course before that we had 2008 crash where we had lots of people taken out of work, business closing down. I think you have to remember also that SMEs is the biggest contributor to it's the biggest part of the client base in the UK. You've got record numbers of liquidations going on. So of course, you've got supply chains affected there, and we've also got the advent. Just look at the Group M report from the other day, which showed that clients are now 52% of their output is user-generated content or AI, and there's
with a noticeable chunk missing from agency bottom lines.
Yeah. I mean, if you look, so let me just look at it quickly. So I think 2019, 72% of content was professionally produced by advertisers. In 2024, that's only 52%.
Yeah.
So 45% of content is now user generated. 1.6 is AI, and they would predict that to change in 2029 to only 39% of content would be professionally produced. 40%.
Pause for thought for everyone listening.
And of course, what I don't know, which I'd love to know, is what is happening because of that in terms of, both brand and business metrics. I don't know whether that shift is bringing about, greater positive brand perceptions, consideration, sales, profit. I really don't know. And of course, we've had so much money diverted from traditional channels into digital channels, and therefore, everyone is behaving very differently in digital channels. And one of the things that we're seeing is that UGC is a result of this fragmentation of media and the move to using kind of digital and social as a means to connect and communicate with audiences, rather than the more traditional channels of, just telling and selling through, TV, outdoor cinema, etc., etc. And I think, one of the other reasons for this is that the whole there's a paradigm shift, which is actually, it isn't about telling and selling, it's about relationships. Well, how do you create and facilitate and nurture, nourish relationships
And building longevity into a
through
relationship.
traditional media?
I think the thing that struck me over the last difference in 20 years, from 20 years ago to the last couple of years, has been just short-termism and clients demand, not looking at next year, year after from a brand point of view and a kind of product launch point of view, but just Q1, Q2, what sales we've got hit in Q2. Where I said, I'm not sure any sort of comps. Just reduce the price a little bit. You'll probably sell more shit. Do you have a view on short-termism versus kind of long-term brand building? Because it comes up a lot, and I've spoken to quite a few marketeers, kind of the guys from the other side of the aisle from us, Damian, and we've touched on it a little bit, and they're all at the mercy of the pressures of, reporting to the city and to shareholders and paymasters, and everything feels short term at the moment, which is clearly affecting the entire industry. And if you look at the numbers you were just talking about there from a content point of view, one's fueling the other, but it's also self-fulfilling, right? If you're only putting out shit that's relevant for today and this afternoon or tomorrow, then you never look further than that, right? You're never looking past your own nose. And I wonder if there's going to be a bit of a backlash to that, or the pendulum might swing back to just anecdotally, the stuff I see that I go, so, when you look at something, you go, I wish I'd worked on that. And from a Stoop point of view, it's always, I'd love to have been in the room when you sold that initial thought, because I'm curious always now how they've done that when you see something pure or simple or just like real single-minded, because it just seems to be few and far between. I think the British Airways stuff from Uncommon, I see it all the time. They've just got a new round of outdoor out at the moment. It's just beautiful. And TBWA just had an amazing piece that they've done for Jaffa Cake. So again, I know the ECD there, and I know he will have loved getting that through the door, because it's just pure and simple advertising. Like just gorgeous art direction, gorgeous line, really delivering a bit of a thing that makes you stop and notice, right? Which is half the challenge. And I don't find it surprising. The stuff we all celebrate and look at and love tends to be old school advertising to me. I've never seen a thing where it goes, has everyone seen this little paid ad that we put out? And this, you know what I mean? You never see that. It's always celebrating like beautiful big outdoor, or I don't know. I'm talking shit, but it's the shit I see people waxing lyrical about. And you think, well, that's not the stuff that's driving the industry anymore, which is a shame.
Yeah, well, I mean, if I go back to your first point about short-termism, of course, everything is constructed. Yeah, even the capitalist system that we're working in, or the nature of kind of the corporate reporting and that how we think about growth. So some businesses, have stopped reporting on at from monthly, they've moved, or quarterly, and they go kind of two reports a year, half yearly, so that can change. Some organisations and businesses are changing that if they are publicly listed. It doesn't have to be the way it is. Boards have a choice. We can affect, the business community, chairmen and CEOs of boards and whoever can change the way these things happen. Sneeze, sorry. Sorry, listeners. And a sniff there as well. Can we edit that out?
No, not at all.
So I think it does affect the way we think about both marketing and communications. I really am going to have to blow my nose. I'm very sorry.
Go for it. Dude, I had to take the puppy out for its business. Don't worry about it.
I'm going to go on mute for just a sec.
You're too kind.
Or actually, I don't know how to do that.
I'll have a drink. It's fine. I'll drink over it. It's fine. I'm going to have a... You see, if anyone thinks that this is a professional outfit...
Yeah, I'm sure everyone...
This is very definition of user-generated.
Yeah, exactly. Me blowing into it. So, but my point is that we don't have to accept things the way they are. It can be changed if we want it to change. There are consequences to everything. I think if we remove or change the way that publicly listed businesses are measured and what they're measured against, that would be change for good. I also think in terms of this, I won't be the first person to say this, but of course the tenure of marketing directors, there's a dynamic going on there where, once upon a time, the Phil Rumballs of the world that were in their role for years, and had the backing of the board, and the ear of CEOs, that's changed. Marketing isn't valued like it used to be. You've got CFOs making decisions rather than CMOs in too many organisations. Mind you, I've met some very savvy and good CFOs who should be in marketing. And also, I think creativity has been devalued. And one of the reasons it's been devalued is there are so many tools to be creative, and therefore, and no barrier to entry. And the way that we judge effectiveness, I think, is to be debated. And too often we are measuring efficiency rather than effectiveness. I mean, there's enough evidence out there to demonstrate what works and what doesn't work in terms of building brands and delivering against key KPIs or KPIs. So I don't think anyone marketer has an excuse to not understand the dynamics of either brand building or driving brand growth. Got the evidence there, and through large empirical studies. If marketers, brands, businesses, and advertisers choose to ignore that and see that short-term promotion and think that short-term promotion is going to contribute to long-term brand health, then they're in for a shock at the end of that. There's no excuse. The evidence is there. So I see some of the dynamics and issues as people putting their heads in the sand, a degree of not being in a position to speak back to speak truth to power, really, which is to have conversations with CEOs, chairmen, or boards and go, this is not the way we're going to either build the brand or drive the business forward in terms of growth. We will see some short-term spikes in profit, but there's going to be a detrimental effect to the long term of the business. Here's the evidence. Here's the proof. I mean, I also think advertising agencies have a responsibility to deliver advice that isn't predicated on the need to keep the business. If you've got to speak, we are employed because we are seen to be experts in our fields and to offer advice to clients and businesses, which is for their benefit. And if that means saying no to things, if that means kind of challenging processes or briefs or objectives, that's what we should do. And if that means you get fired for doing that, then so be it. You've done your job. Nothing brave about saying to a client, I don't agree. Here's the evidence why we think there's an alternative route or approach. We are here to advise you from a neutral perspective to deliver, profit, prosperity, and growth. Here's the solution to that. If you don't accept it, that's fine. But we won't do it. I mean, I don't understand this conversation. Sorry to rant a bit here, Jared.
No,
I
go
don't
for it, man.
I don't understand this paradigm, or I don't know what would I call it, this kind of conversation where people go, that's brave. This idea of being brave in the world of advertising and marketing. I'm sorry, you're just doing your fucking job.
Honestly, I had the good fortune of hearing Niels Leonard do a little bit of a talk the other week, and he started it with this amazing slide about bold advertising and brave advertising. And the next slide was what his wife had said to him years ago, which was he'd said to her, I'm going to go and give a talk on being bold and brave in advertising. And his wife's response was, fuck off, you work in advertising. Firefighters are brave in their job. Advertisers are not fucking brave. And he said it just changed his mind. It just changed him instantly, like this notion of
Yeah.
being brave and bold
Well,
in advertising.
tell me about it. I mean, I think it must have been 2013 maybe, or something like that. So my twin brother was towards the end of his time here. He had bowel cancer, so I was seeing a lot of him, of course. We were very tight as twins. And there was an Adweek lecture, and David Droger was chair of a panel, and I think there was John Hegarty, Steve Howe from Hal Henry. There might have even been Dave Trott. The kind of luminaries of the
Yeah.
advertising world.
Some names.
Yeah,
Some names.
serious names. And I bumped into Lawrence Green, ex-founder and head of Fallon's, who I'd known since my Howard's Big days, I hadn't seen him for ages. So we were sitting together, and I'm listening to this conversation, the panel talk, Dave talking about, and it's all about, being brave in advertising. And all the way through, I'm just sitting there going, fuck off. I've got I tell you who's brave is my brother who's in absolute fucking agony,
Yeah.
a mile down the road in the hospital, and yet still having a laugh with me when I go and see it. Or like you say, firefighters or frontline workers. And I was getting really fucking wound up by it. And I wanted to just stand up and go, you're all talking absolute fucking bollocks. And of course, that would have
Well,
that would have
I know
ended my.
you. I know you, Damien, and I'm gobsmacked that you didn't. To be honest, you were obviously showing a lot of restraint that day, my
Well, I
friend.
tell you what did happen is that they then got to questions and they said, would anyone like to ask a question? And I just stood
Here
up,
we go.
went out on my own. And I thought, I'm just going to vote with my feet. You
See,
know,
I knew there was something very Damien about this story.
yeah,
There it is.
yeah. And I thank you,
Go
mate.
on, sorry.
I suppose, the thing is that, like you were suggesting earlier, I, you know, I love advertising. But the thing for me, Jared, is I can't do anything unless I feel passionate about it.
Yeah. Passionate about it is a better word for it.
For me, passion drives me. And so, even when I did a project recently for P&G, professional cleaning products, I found a way to get excited and passionate about it. And I did that because I ended up interviewing all these kind of hoteliers and restaurant owners and etc. around the world who really cared about their businesses and cared about delivering an experience for their customers where their
Right.
cleanliness was important. There's always a human dynamic at play here that gets me excited and makes me feel it, and I am very passionate about what I do, and therefore I can't accept fudge. I don't like a fudge. I don't like, and I can't really accept the compromise that means something that could be good is now shit. And I'd rather stand up for that belief, that thought, rooted in evidence. Let's not forget, rooted in a kind of, a robust argument. And I think this is where I have kind of a lot of simpatico with Niels and any other agency that says no to bad ideas and won't compromise. Is
Well, from what I hear, they're kind of, from what I hear, their approach is a lot more. I don't want to say old school because I don't know if it was ever like this, but a lot more in line with kind of your values that you're talking about there, and the need. The reason they're successful at the moment when a lot of big names maybe necessarily aren't is I think they are being a bit more honest and a bit more talking truth to power. And I think from what I understand, their business model is different, and it's a much more attached to media spend and things like that. Again, it's a much more old school when media and agencies were joined at the hip a little bit more. So I think it's probably given them the freedom to be really creative because that's what you see. I'm sure they're doing the BAU stuff, and I'm sure they're getting some of the, the 50,000 assets out the door for that's needed in today's modern society of communicating, 24/7. But I think fundamentally I think they've got the right view of what works and what doesn't. And from what I understand, they're pretty good at saying that. And I think it might be rare at the moment. It's probably why they're succeeding, along with some of the other. There's a few independents, right, that are doing really well, and it's
Yeah,
probably having that ability to talk a little bit truth to power. Because I think when you're a global network agency, you saying something to the regional guy or the local market guy has ramifications. If it's not particularly well received, that can go all the way up to global in North America or wherever it may be situated. And there are huge knock-on effects, whereas maybe some of these independents just have that ability to just, have a conversation that's not going to affect 5,000 jobs over in North America or vice versa and things. So there's probably something in it with those guys.
yeah. I
I
mean,
think,
well,
no, I was going to say, look, it's this in between projects for you, and it's. I think people listening, whether they're looking for full time, part time, fractional, it's important to kind of keep your values in place, and what you shouldn't say yes to a thing that you know is going to suck. I think it's an important thing to say, and we all have responsibilities. We all, we have car payments and mortgages and things. So there's lines, right? Everyone has a line, but from a moving forwards or navigating this time in the Badlands, I mean, how are you looking after yourself mentally, physically? Like, do you have a way approaching project hunting in your case, job hunting, like,
yeah,
or is it serendipitous? Are you networking? Are you out and about? Like, how are you going about it? Because I think I want people to. I think we've given a really beautiful illustration of working with value and purpose and what that can mean for you. But then, are there some practical things that you can maybe have someone think about?
yeah. I mean, I think firstly, I've kind of come to a point of view which is having articulating and being upfront about your values and the way you want to work will mean that you kind of get a this kind of way of filtering opportunities that come to you. So, if you are honest about yourself, true to yourself, things that come to you will be the right things that come to you. Yeah. I think saying no to opportunities that you know are going to be damaging to your values and the way that or your joy and your passion for the business. I think, particularly when you're in between projects or in between work, saying yes to something that then hurts your soul isn't a good way of moving you forward into other good opportunities. I think,
Yeah, yeah,
I would rather be happy and poor than unhappy and rich. Simple as that. If I'm unhappy, all my other relationships probably suffer. My relationship, my wife and my kids and my friends. You know,
yeah,
and I try not to let those things affect it. But the truth is that when I'm unhappy, I get a bit self-destructive because I'm unhappy. So so I find that really important, and I think in terms of when I'm in between projects, as I am now, uh, I have one, I remind myself daily of what I've achieved and and what I'm capable of. It doesn't mean I kind of think I'm the fucking bee's knees or the best person in the world, but you know, I have to. have to remind myself at times of what I've achieved and what I've done and how remarkable it is, and that, you know, I still have a lot of value to contribute to any project and any business. So I remind myself of that. I also have people around me that are very generous to me around my skills and my talent and my nature, I suppose. And I'm very careful about being around people that are ungenerous or unkind. Um, and the other, you know, I suppose emotional side to that is I have a very rich inner life. I consume everything and anything in terms of, you know, whether it's from my professional uh, interest through to my personal interests, stuff that nourishes me, you know. Um, and when it comes to new business, new opportunities, new projects, for me, it's first of all, you know, because I was in sales in my very early career, as you know, knocking on cold calling for selling fire
Yeah, I think
extinguishers,
there's
and
always the fire extinguisher
uh,
salesman route we can go back to.
yeah, and it's first of all, it's a numbers game, you know, it's
Yeah,
it's like anything, you don't get anywhere without the hard graft. You know, and then it's about, well, you know, systems and approaches and lists. You know, who do I know? Who do I know that knows somebody I might want to know? I mean, I helped a guy out recently because a friend asked me to, and he's started a business in the UK, and uh, because and these are an old friend asking me to help a stranger out. So then I went, yeah, of course. So then I spoke to some old friends I hadn't really been in touch with for a while either. And because it was me, they were cool about it as well. But this stranger I helped out wouldn't stop emailing me or email and go, let me take you for lunch, you know. And I would go, yeah, you know, I'm kind of busy, blah, blah. Because I didn't know him and I thought, I don't mind doing you a favor, but I don't
yeah.
know you. So why do I want to have lunch? He wouldn't
This
fucking
is turning
stop.
into
He was
this is turning into a Larry David Curb Your Enthusiasm episode, Damien.
Yeah. And he was very polite, but incredibly persistent. And eventually I went, all right, you know, let's meet. We fell in love with each other within like 30 seconds. He was a really beautiful, lovely guy. Uh, he's from Persian background. Obviously, I'm Egyptian English. So we had that kind of cultural thing. But really sweet, lovely, generous guy. We ended up, we met at lunchtime and we didn't get home till like 2 in the morning. It was, and I just thought, and I said to him, you know what? I'm really glad you were so persistent, but I have to tell you, you did it in such a beautiful way. It was never a bother, never a
Right.
bother at all. And it reminded me of the fact that, you know, particularly when my kind of uh, English side comes out, which is can be quite reticent and believe it or not, Jared, uh, uh, reticent about kind of pester. Well, I think I'm pestering people.
Yeah. It's very
Uh,
British. It's a very British mentality, right? So like, oh,
yes,
just
yes.
don't want to bother
But
anyone.
here was an example of it was persistence rather than pestering, you know. And actually, on meeting, it was wonderful. And I have
Yeah.
to remind myself of that when I'm looking for projects and communicate. Everyone is busy. Everyone is slightly reluctant to give a bit of time, but you know, give them a good reason to. You know, do it in a polite and persistent way, and uh, people will eventually make the time and the effort for you. Um, you know, I will only add value to uh, projects. You know, so I have to remind myself of that, and therefore when I'm, you know, persistently chasing an opportunity or creating an opportunity, I have to remind myself that uh, if they were to accept that connection, if we were to have conversations, I'm there for. I'm going to add value to them and their business. So why am I reluctant to do this?
Yeah. No, it's brilliant. I love it. because I've gone through that. He's like, well, I'm really trying to come and help. Do you know what I mean? It's like I really want to come and work there. It's a weird thing, right? You forget. It feels like you're asking them to do you a favor. But it's not. No, it's the other way around. That I
Yeah,
want to come and roll my sleeves up
yeah,
and get involved and
yeah,
solve some shit and
yeah. And
work with some people and make someone's life a little bit nicer, whatever.
yeah, and then also think about how you're doing it. So, I wanted to connect with Niels because I love what they're doing. I mean, Lucy was my boss back at DDB, but I didn't really want to connect through her. And also, I write, I'm a writer. Actually, when you talked earlier about, my thing is the kind of human insight and everything. Actually, the truth is, the thing I care about the most is the work. I kind of feel that, I love making and doing stuff, in my personal life. I like to see the end results. For me, it doesn't matter how brilliant my brief is or the research paper I wrote. If it doesn't end up with fantastic work that contributes to culture, for me, it's all kind of so what. Um, but so that I have a lot of mates in the industry uh, who are creatives. Those are the people I've really connected to through my career. But I read an interview with Niels where he talked about, or he wrote a little piece about his fascination with or obsession with IKB 75, which is Yves Klein's ultramarine blue. And I have a similar obsession with it. In fact, one of my walls is the exact IKB 75 that was commercially produced via the Yves Klein estate and a commercial paint manufacturer in France. And my mates in Paris bring it over to me. So I basically painted a number of postcards in that IKB 75 and wrote a little thing to Niels, and he wrote back and said I sniffed it for 3 minutes and now it's on his wall in front of him in his office.
That's beautiful.
And the quote was Howard Luck Gossard's quote, which was changing the world is the only fit work for a grown man.
Wow.
And you know that's an example of how do you engage with people that don't know you? How do you engage with people who must be getting loads of fucking
Yeah.
notes and meet me, see me, please, whatever. I think we've got to be interesting, and if you've got to demonstrate that who you are a little bit as well, and how you both kind of you've got to do some research about those people if you don't know them. And you also got to think about the way that you engage them. Just writing a note on LinkedIn, DMing on LinkedIn, it ain't going to do much for you. You've got to go a little bit further. So I think it's a numbers game. It's about knowing who you're talking to. It's about finding new ways to connect, communicate, and I even write people's stories. There's a creative director in America. We'd had a conversation about big job in the States, and it wasn't really going anywhere. So I wrote him a story about a carrier pigeon. You know, um, and which because he wasn't responding. I was emailing him. I'd sent him DMs on LinkedIn. I'd sent him WhatsApps. Clearly fucking ignored me. So I thought I'd just write him a story about a carrier pigeon.
Wow.
And he wrote back, you know.
Oh, I see. I thought you were gonna say, and he sent one back, a carrier pigeon with a
Yeah,
note on it.
yeah. No, that's what he should have done. And
You
I
should.
did try and find a guy in America who would actually then send a real pigeon.
Yeah, Howling
Um,
pigeon. That'd be amazing.
but it was going to cost me a fortune. I thought, I'm not-
Yeah. The line, right?
yeah, yeah,
Can I just because this is all beautiful, and I agree, and I've spoken about it before with a few people, like trying to go that, there's a lot of noise out there at the moment. There's a lot of people in the same place in the Badlands and looking for work, and standing out is an important part of it because we're all dealing with the automated kind of application systems and easy apply bollocks on LinkedIn. It's like no, it's noise. I think it'll you'll kind of solve your own problem through people and connections and network and demonstrating. Can't tell someone you're funny, right? You kind of, if you can live some of your values and some of the things that you might bring to a role through your communication, it's only going to help. I think it's a really important thing for people to hear. What I will say, though, Damian, the effort you took to get in touch with Mr. Nils Leonard at Uncommon, when I started this podcast, I created a Instagram page for it because, you're supposed to have one. So I made one. And, you kind of quickly go down the rabbit hole of folk from the ad industry, and it kind of serves up this person, this person, this person. Nils came up. And I thought it was a guy called Nils who I used to work with, a creative guy. So I was like, oh, Nils, he'll love this and thing. And he was like, yeah, minutes later, yeah, cool. And then it was only a few weeks later I realized, oh, that's Nils Leonard. That's that fucking guy. It's not Nils who I used to work with, this other lad who's an art director of this place. So he instantly replied to me, Damian, no fucking blues, no nothing. So take from that what you will, mate. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, I think, it's just a sign of, the humanity and generosity of good people, as well as, how brilliant what you're doing is.
Yeah, I'm joking.
So I think that's the other thing that I always think the best of people, even when they are on radio silence. I think, I've been in the situation where I've been in the world of paranoia, which is nobody likes me, nobody loves me, nobody wants me. I'm worthless and rubbish and stuff like that. It is a place I have been. For different lengths, I suppose. And it's easy to go there. It's an easy place to go to, and also
sure.
Not an unfamiliar place for anybody. And when you do go there, the thing not to do is to beat yourself up even further for going there. There is nothing wrong with feeling sorry for yourself at times. There is nothing wrong with, not believing, losing, doubting yourself, or, having these moments of, the moment of doubt. I even did a famous drink drive advertising about the moment of doubt. We all have it. You compound it, I think, by berating yourself when you go there. The trick is only to recognize that you've gone there and then understand that there are steps to get yourself out of it, and to understand what those steps are. And maybe that step is to read your CV again. Maybe that step is to call a good mate up and just have a chat, someone who will tell you how lovely you are. Maybe it's, a walk in the park, whatever it is, you find your own means to, either get out from under that cloud or out of that hole. But you just have to remember that there's always a way out. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel, and you have to learn how you get out there. It's a very personal, specific thing, and I'm not in the business of telling people how to do it. All I would say is that there is always a way. And when you are under the cloud or in the hole, just to remember that we all go there and we all get out of it. Not all of us, sadly, but most of us. And to believe in the inherent generosity of others, even when they don't respond, they don't reply, even when they mess up, even when they kind of, forget to get back to you or gone silent. It's really easy to get into that bitter place where you're just going, for fuck's sake, just do your fucking job and respond to me, or just be nice and get back to me, or, to get into that place of anger and
frustration
and resentment, because
it doesn't solve anything.
It doesn't solve anything. And in fact, when you finally do have that interaction, you've got to be very, very careful that isn't seen behind the eyes, or it isn't seen in words. People are busy. People have got their own shit to deal with, and so I kind of I'm very, very aware and conscious of what I bring to my interactions with people, whether that's through virtual interactions or physical interactions, because I really believe that they feel it somehow. If you bring your shit to those interactions, you've got to go there yourself with. I mean, I've walked into interviews in the past where I know if I didn't get the job, we'd be fucked financially, and I've walked in there like I care, but I don't care. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a constant kind of, to borrow from Orwell, it's a constant use of doublethink. This really, really matters, but I'm not going to, prostrate myself in front of you to get the job or the gig.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I did an exercise with the careers coach a couple of months back when I've been looking at the off ramp from the ad world into other things. And yeah, yeah, the kind of we were talking about how one of the exercises was how I'd got different jobs, and honestly, on reflection, like serendipity played a massive part of it. And weirdly, the realization that I'd kind of gotten all of the jobs by going to those interviews, not really bothered if I got the job or not, because I was working somewhere that I enjoyed already. You know what I mean? I never left somewhere that I hated and I needed a new job. So you kind of turned up like, please give me the job. I want to get out of this shithole. I was always just kind of happy to go along and have a chat. And if it felt nice, cool. But equally, well, fine. If it didn't. And I think it goes a long way. And I've noticed when I was first in the Badlands, one of the first real opportunities that came my way, on reflection, with hindsight, a month or two later, I thought, I must have come across like the fucking, like, just high levels of anxiety. It must have looked like I'd had 50 coffees, because I'd maybe had 50 coffees in order to seem like engaged and on. And I was like, fucking hell, like, it can't have come across very well. I know that with the beauty of hindsight, because I'd gone into it too highly strung and too kind of,
Yes.
I need this. And I needed it from an ego point of view more than a finance point of view. And it was an agent, it was, kind of all the things that were probably wrong with it in the first place. But I can't agree more from
I mean,
you need to stay match fit in the sports analogy sense of, because you might get called on at any second to play, right? So I think there's a level of, people will find their own way to let you consume stuff, and it clearly shows up in your work. And I think if you can find ways to do that, it's only going to help when the phone does ring or the email does land. And
yeah.
I think it's an important part of it, staying mindful.
I would add, I over prepare for every encounter. I think of, I'm not sure I've done it today, but I try and think of a narrative and a language to use in that narrative that feels unique. I kind of think of themes that I want to explore in conversations with people that might be a gateway or the decider and an opportunity. And I think really long and hard about it, and how to make it relevant, pertinent to them and their business or the opportunity. And I never take it as a kind of what's how do I put it? I never walk into those moments and opportunities kind of, I don't need to. Even when I'm interviewing people, and I've been interviewing some people recently for a new business opportunity for an agency that I'm helping out. And even then, I do the research about them. I think really carefully about the kind of dynamic of the conversation. And if you've got to care about looking for opportunities in the same way that you care about the opportunity when you get it. Without that, your chances of succeeding are going to be far fewer. That same passion and enthusiasm and commitment that we give to work has to apply when you're looking for work.
I couldn't agree more. I think I don't think I need to add anything to it, Damo. I think the reason I was slightly distracted then, I've just had Spotify on the call going, it's too fucking long, guys. You can't host it with us. This is too long. You can't host it with us. I was like, Joe Rogan's are 3 hours. What are you talking about?
Well, I need to get off the I've got a 1 o'clock call actually with regarding another opportunity. So
Well, that is a good reason to get off. Damien, can you do me a favor?
yeah,
Can you stay on the line a second? But
yeah,
as I kind of wrap us up and take us out of this, I can't thank you enough for your time, mate. And I knew there'd be some storytelling because it's fundamentally what you are. You're a brilliant storyteller, and we could do a podcast with some uh, non-professional stories from Damian Mckeown, and they would be gangbusters as a podcast because you've got some belters. I loved working with you. We had a blast. So I can't thank you enough for your time today, mate. I really can't. I know people will take a lot from this. There's a lot to think about, and there'll be a lot of interesting things for people to think about for sure. So it goes without saying that Damien's available if with a lot of caveats. You got to be fucking good for Damien to come and work with you, but Damien's available. And I tell you what we might do, Damien. We might send this to Nils because he's been mentioned a few fucking times, hasn't he? He could put this out for us as well.
yeah.
We might send him it. We might colour it the right colour blue and then send him it. Yeah, thank you so much, mate. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. It's always a pleasure chatting with you, mate. Yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed it. I hope I didn't rant too much.
No, mate, never. Just stay there though, buddy. I'm just going to end the recording, but stay there a second.